Greetings and welcome to Zord's Asteroid Space Program 8th episode, where we are flying this old tanker that we left in orbit. Now, this tanker doesn't have a lot of fuel left, but I figured that if we use most of it, honestly, I can move it to the orbit that the Artemis is currently occupying. And then we can transfer what little fuel there's left to the Artemis, and then throw the tanker away. And yeah, I think this is worth doing because we don't have to launch another tanker, and the Artemis needs refueling before the next mission. Now we're doing one of these slightly eccentric orbits, or elliptic orbit, where we are taking a long time to sync up. So in the meantime, we should go get the crew. They have been in space for quite a while, and we want to bring the samples they have collected back to Kerbin. So we're launching another one of these crew getters. This is a slightly upgraded version that's capable of docking to a ship. The previous versions couldn't and didn't need to because the ships they were servicing didn't have any docking ports. So yeah, but now we can, and we will. But as always, when we're launching into a rendezvous in a polar orbit, we have to wait quite a long time before we actually get the rendezvous. So we set up and trim the encounters that's gonna take place in the future, and then we wait. In the meantime, this first ship has gone close enough that we can do its encounter. Of course, I fast forwarded a bit in between here, but anyway. So we are closing to the Artemis and spot a great problem. That is, this ship does not have any control and it's facing the wrong direction. So I resort to desperate measures, that is using only one of the main engines to turn the ship around fast enough for me to save this encounter. So now that we're facing the right direction-ish, I can use the gimbal of the engines to get this thing under control. Because we don't want to waste all this fuel and this opportunity just because we didn't do it properly. So the easiest way to do this encounter now, I figure, is to use one of these self-propelled tank things to go out and dock with the tanker. They are by far the most agile and most energy efficient way to transport anything in this particular scene. So my first thought was to just use the RCS on the tank thing to fly the tanker to the Artemis. But then I figured the tank thing has its own tank, right? So why don't I just transfer all the resources from the tanker and then fly the tank thing back to the Artemis? Don't have to bother with moving all the metal that's in the tanker. So that's what I did. So I docked these two together, and then we, well, the map view is looking a bit weird. I sure hope this isn't foreshadowing of some great glitch that's gonna come back later in the game and totally ruin everything. Sure hope that's not gonna happen. Anyway, we transfer the fuel, fill up this little fuel tanker. It has sufficient capacity, or rather the tanker is almost empty, so all the fuel can fit in this little ship. And then we fly it back to the Artemis and we dock it where it's supposed to be, on right below the engines, on the, the main body of the ship itself. Here, one of these 8 docking ports. And I know it's really dark and it's pretty much impossible to see what's going on, but we have a few lights, and so we can at least see the final approach and docking. Like so. There we go. Now we have to do it 7 times. We're just transferring the tank things to the original locations. Let's see, we're not, now this encounter is still far off, so we can keep doing this. And this was quite laborious, so to say. So I'm just gonna cut rather heavily in this part. You don't need or want to see me do this. It's just putting all the toys back in the box when we're done playing with them. So this is the first one, skipping forward to the actual docking. Or is it the second one? It's the second one. And then we need to Yeah, let's say, yeah. This is the fourth one. So we're putting the upper layer first. That makes a lot of sense in my mind. It's careful and docked. Nice. And the counter's still a far way away. So this is the last one, the 8th tank thing. And it should fit right in here. See? Perfect. Now we are done and we can... Whoa! Oh, okay, what's going on? Why is this thing... Oh no. Alright, okay, so nothing weird there, and this wasn't the asteroid. Okay, we're accelerating. We're accelerating, but we're not changing velocity. This is not good. Okay. Oh, okay. Well, I guess that solves everything. Okay, well, this is a classic example of the game screwed me over, and thus I'm allowed to do whatever I can to restore the previous condition. It turns out that was not as easy as it could have been, because I had no saves that was taken during the recording of this episode. So this is what we're seeing now, which is the deorbiting of the now empty fuel tanker, was recorded a lot later, because well, what could I do? I restored the latest save I have, which was at the beginning of this episode, redid everything as closely as possible off camera, and then just continue recording. So this is disposal of space junk. Nice. Now, moving on. This is the encounter of the crew getter and the Artemis. And you will notice that the Artemis is now, as it should be, intact and with the asteroid still attached to it. So here we are, we're going to retrieve the 3 crew members and their science that they have gathered, or rather the samples, or sample. They have only taken one. They haven't actually collected one for low Kerbin orbit yet. So let's transfer over the Kerbals. This is a fairly routine action. So this is first one, and this is second one, and the last one I believe is Bob Kerman, maybe? He's gonna collect the surface sample from the asteroid in low Kerbin orbit. I'm sure it's all kinds of fascinating physiological and chemical properties have changed because we moved closer to the planet. I don't know. You don't actually get a lot of science from this collecting asteroids, I've noticed. So there we are, we have transferred the crew and all appropriate resources. So let's get these guys home. Let's see if the asteroid science gives us anything of value at all. You see we have transferred most of our resources over to the Artemis because we don't need them and the Artemis does. So we are re-entering the atmosphere. It's always fun. Going to use physics time acceleration to get down to the surface in reasonable time at least. So parachutes deployed. We're getting close to the surface of the ocean. We're landing in the water. That's good, because then we hopefully won't die. Or maybe, depending on how you view it, if you're trying to be realistic or not. So, science. We didn't get a lot, but we can unlock the next node, or one node, which is going to be, I think, electrics. Large electrics is the only one I have any kind of use for. So that's it. Now, in the meantime, the Artemis, now with no crew, is preparing for the next mission. So we detach this D-class asteroid, huge piece of rock. We can't really do anything with it, or we aren't at least. And the Artemis is going to be refueled by this new XXL tanker. We are, as usual, launching into the polar orbit, trying to rendezvous, and this tanker is equipped with extra amount of RCS fuel because we used a lot of it on the Artemis, the last mission. And this tanker also has a SAS reaction wheel because we want to be able to move it even without the RCS. I honestly think this is going to be the new standard design for these kinds of ship. So we arrive at the Artemis as planned, and we are going to dock and transfer the fuel. Here we go. Careful now. This is a lot of mass moving, so even if we're moving at a fraction of a meter per second, it's a lot of energy when they inevitably collide. So we're just gonna... I really don't want when the docking ports just snap off. It would be not good at all. So now we'll transfer over the fuel, and let's see how far this gets us. Well, the good news is that we are not wasting any of the fuel tanker's capacity, because we transferred every single drop of fuel we have. The bad news is that the Artemis is not fully refueled, but the good news in relation to the bad news is that I judge we have enough fuel, even though we are not fully fueled. So let's carry on with the preparations for the next mission by launching the crew that's going to man this mission. Now, this mission that we're going to start soon is the capture of an E-class asteroid. This is for what the Artemis was originally designed to do, and this is pretty much the hardest thing I can imagine doing in relation to the Asteroid space program. So, in light of this, I want the most veteran, most experienced astronauts we have. And those are, of course, the orange suits, Bill, Jeb and Bob, the original trio. So I am now transferring Bill, Jeb and Bob into the Artemis, which have been fueled, have gotten rid of its previous asteroid, and is now getting crewed. We are ready to launch the mission for the E-class retrieval. Of course, we're not gonna throw away the ship just yet. You remember I said we're not fully fueled? Well, this ship has a little bit of fuel. It would be a shame to just throw it into the atmosphere for no use. You can give it to the Artemis and some of the RCS fuel maybe as well. Here we go. Now you can go. It's space junk now. Not gonna need it anymore. So just deorbit this thing on RCS fuel. There we go. Now, the asteroid we're going to capture is this one, and you see it has a very low periapsis. So, until next week, I'm going to figure out how to capture it. I thank you for watching, and I hope to see you then. Goodbye!